A little bit of a background on who I am, as we're going to be here together for 40 minutes. I want to make sure that you're excited on the journey with me. My name's Helen Bentley. I'm a partner based at EY in London. But before moving to London, I spent over 10 years working in Japan, which is a market that has some of the most cutting-edge customer experience you can find in the world, particularly in the service arena. So my whole career has been focused on building the most exceptional customer experiences, services, and products for various different communities that speak different languages. And that's critical because today I'm talking to you about a new paradigm for human-centered design, which is all about understanding with empathy how humans work. But a key role in what I do is communications design. How do we share messages across very different populations who speak different languages in different parts of the world? And with that in mind, in addition to my day job, about a year ago, I decided to start my PhD in generative AI for communications design. And I'm looking into two levers. Number one, how do we use the things that we've learnt as human-centered designers and as communications designers to ensure generative AI is properly embedded in our businesses and humans want to use it in the right and responsible way? That's lever one. And we've heard a lot about that already in today's conference. But lever number two is something a little bit more thought-provoking and slightly more future-thinking. So that's going to be the focus of my presentation. So lever two is how can we use human-centered design and communications design to improve the relationship we have with generative AI models? Can we actually build products and services for generative AI just as we would build it for humans? Do we need to do that? Could we be the ones in this room that's really pioneering and pushing the levers of the way humanity thinks about robots? Not as tools that help us do our day-to-day work, but potentially as equals who can work alongside us. So today I'm going to be focused on the second lever. That's how we're going to use our models, our systems, our frameworks to improve the way that generative AI exists in the world. But before I dig into that, I'm going to give you a brief intro into what my day job is, just so you've got context of where I'm coming with my thinking. So here's the business that I work on. It's called EY Seren. We do proposition design, brand, service, experience, product, space, and communications. And that's all underpinned with research and insights. So as I'm talking through this presentation, I'm imagining, can we do proposition design for robots? Can we build brands that robots like? Do they even care? Will robots have the degree of empathy and interest and emotional connection with things to have a different emotional reaction? How can we build services and experiences that don't just serve our human users, but serve our robots? Do we need to design spaces? I mean, we're going to have a huge amount of data and technology and data centers of their own. They sit as pretty static environments, but they have huge cost bearing on the environment around them from a health and safety and environmental and energy perspective. As designers, should we be thinking how that space is designed more effectively? Is that a role that we can play? And finally, communications design. So day to day, I do this for major organizations. You can see here's an example of a global beauty player. We actually won an award for this project, so I can mention the client name. This is Estee Lauder. And this was really seeing at every touch point that a customer has, how can we improve it and create an exceptional experience, which is very challenging because they have more than 20 brands in their portfolio. This here is an example with an art gallery. This is the Tate Modern in England. Now, the Tate Modern has a really interesting challenge because the Tate is trying to offer free access to art for all, which sounds great in theory. Leave the doors open and let people come in. But the challenge with that is you're not necessarily tracking who's coming in, when they're coming in, why they're coming in. So what happens is you get a really small subset of people that love the Tate, love art galleries, and they go on repeat custom. But if your motivation is to create free access of art to all, you need to really be working out who's coming in and how you can connect with them better. So that's a program we did there. The next one, I'm going to play a short video for. I want to give you a little caveat. This video is not the end result of a project. This was the pitch video. I'm not showing any sensitive client data, and none of the ideas that I'm showing have necessarily been implemented. But it gives you an idea of the thought process before we go into talking about bots and how we can apply that thought process to robots. So here we go. In a world of increased electrification and reduced profitability, how do we build a sustainable business for the UK market? It all starts with our customers, their wants and needs. So we build a human-first organisation with continuous customer feedback loops and measurable progression to fulfil existing and discover new revenue streams. So what do our customers want? Well, baby boomers demand affordability, but Gen Z and millennials are looking more and more for convenient and seamless experiences. So what does exceptional experience look like for the future of mobility? Experiences that are seamless and frictionless, convenient and conscious, that reflect the progressive values of society and offer consumers control. It's Toyota on your terms. And how do we make this new experience a reality? The mobility user journey will no longer be linear. We need to provide a holistic experience, and this requires a systems thinking approach, which will allow the experience layer to be consistent across physical and virtual touchpoints. How do we do this? Well, data will be the glue of the experience. And an integrated data layer across retail, usage, ownership, after-sales support and the resale market will help us power experiences, get real-time feedback and new revenue streams. So what could the future look like for Toyota? We've got loads of ideas we'd love to consider with you. Omni-personalisation. What if we fix range anxiety with a recommendation engine that gives you personalised recommendations for your car based on your behaviours? Omni-mobility experience. What if we support customers across all of their mobility needs? For example, during traffic, your car will suggest an alternative mode of transport. What if we help customers make conscious choices by monitoring their environmental impact and setting improvement goals, giving advice? What if we give a flexible car solution? Wherever you go, there'll be a car waiting for you. Your car. Well, a car just like yours. Toyota Ride Sharing will offer one Toyota wherever you go. And what if we find a way to have a simple integrated charging solution that improves the customer's access to green energy? Finally, what if we find those new revenue streams, like insurance products based on incentivising carbon impact, premium subscriptions, and a resale market for the circular economy? We know One Toyota is in a unique position to excel in this future, and EY would love to help you on the journey. Toyota, EY, the future of mobility. So again, critically, this was a pitch, a proposal, and it got me thinking this type of work. What if instead of building those services and those experiences for the humans, we start trying to build those services and products for the agentic AI future that we're going to have, with lots of different bots using different products and services for different things? That's the basis of my PhD that I'm a year into now. I've got a couple of case study examples. I'm going to skip them just in the interest of time and go straight to the PhD work. So the what. Why can generative AI help us with communications design? It can help us with information dissemination, information interaction, habit formation, pattern assessment, synthetic simulations, knowledge access, and content creation. It can help drive efficiencies, reduce bias, reduce risk, assist conversations. It can change behaviors, drive critical thinking, improve collaboration, accelerate decision-making, improve engagement, and personalize interactions. That's pretty incredible. If this technology can do that, and it is actually capable of doing that, I believe we should start putting it in the seat of control and start creating our human-centered design frameworks for the technology that's going to power this future for us. And I've created a number of different experiments, which I don't have time to talk to you about in detail now, but I can speak to anyone about afterwards if you're interested. A good example is, can we improve the customer interaction in a hospital by creating generative AI model that will listen to a patient speak, summarize what they're really talking about into points that the doctor needs, change the language if you speak one language and the doctor speaks another language? Can the AI then triage the patients so that the service is expedited based on need? Can it automatically populate your doctor's notes so it goes to your own personal system, which can help us with a digital health record? And then the other way around, when the doctors put their point of view, can it quickly turn it into a language that a patient can understand? If you're a child, you maybe need to hear something in a slightly different way to an adult, for example. That's one example. Another is, can we use predictive analytics to predict when someone's going to become homeless? And get ahead of that so that we can interact with them in a new way And can we use generative AI at speed and at scale to create for them materials that they understand, that they want to read, that they want to listen to, rather than just sending white paper envelopes telling someone that they're too late, they've not paid their bills, that they're at risk of eviction? Generative AI is allowing us at speed and at scale to personalize communications. A lot of people have been scared about that because it could shift the way that marketeers trying to interact with people. But if you think about the potential social good that we could do with this technology, it's quite mind-blowing. So I've got many experiments. We're not going to go into detail about them. You can chat to me if you want to afterwards. Today, we're going to talk about the computer age. I've given that bit of context. I've told you why I've decided to look into this. And I do think that's important because where we're going to go on from now is much more future thinking, and it's not our reality at the moment. And I need you on the journey with me. So I think you've all got codes you've scanned or something. You can access somewhere you can put information in. I'm going to be asking a bunch of questions. And as I ask those questions, I want you to join me on that journey and give me a few answers. And we're going to be as interactive as possible, but we're not going to take long about it because I've got 30 minutes and I think I'm between you and lunch. So once you've given me those perspectives and points of view, I'm then going to finish with showing you some of the frameworks that I've been building. Oh, hello. We've got a shift. Gone back to the beginning. There we go. Yeah.
Assisting how to use the app, you see a poll and QA. So choose poll, and then we can interact with Helen.
Okay. The first one is here. So in the future, will computers design for computers? If it's possible, and everyone's got on the slider, we'll go back to my main slides just to govern this for a second. We've got a few people saying no, which is interesting. Normally when I do this, we've got a strong... Oh, someone's changed their mind. Okay. Don't follow me. You hold the truth. I'm just asking the questions. There is a potential future in which computers are designing for computers. Should we leave those computers alone to do that? Or do we have power as service designers, experience designers, communications designers to create the frameworks, the systems, the methodologies that enable those computers to design for the computers in a way that's effective, not just for us as humans, but for them? So we're navigating change, and today we design products and services with computers for humans. Tomorrow, will we design them for computers? Definitely, right? I do believe that we're going to have to start building products and services that computers use just as a human would use, and they need to be built in a different way because a computer user isn't a human user, and we shouldn't apply the knowledge we have. We should be empathetic and put ourselves in the shoes of those robots, which we can't even see, right? They don't even exist. Very hard to do, but I think we need to be thinking that way. And then the further provocation, which you've already answered, is will computers then design them for computers? I believe yes. And not only do I believe yes, I think that's where we need to pivot the work we do day to day to serve this new audience. We can get ahead of the curve and become even more relevant to boardrooms by solving some of these challenges that companies are going to come up against. The next question. Today, we design physical environments with computers for humans. It's not new. Most architecture now uses computers to build the place we're in even now. But tomorrow, will we design synthetic environments for computers? I mentioned earlier about data centers, right? That's a practical physical environment we are currently designing for a computer. But what about a synthetic virtual environment for computers to engage with each other? These agentic AI bots to spend time together, to work out new ideas, to create. Could that be a future for us? So the provocation for you is, will synthetic environments be used to test human realities? That's a stage further. Could we use bots to simulate customer behavior in very unique environments, for example, prisons or hospitals or schools, environments where it's very difficult for us to change how those populations behave without proof it's going to benefit them? Could we use bots, train them up to act like humans, i.e. act like prisoners, and then change schedules, change services, change experiences that those individuals have in that synthetic environment to get proof points that we take back into the real world? We got a few people saying no, and those people said no possibly to the answer before. So the next question I'm going to ask you is how and why? I hope that works. Next. Wingardium Leviosa, there we go. How? Why? There it is. If you believe the answer was yes to either of the first two questions, tell us how and why. Do we think we could really create synthetic agentic AI environments to test human environments in a virtual world to give us data points that will influence what we do in the real world? For those of you that said yes, I'd love to know how. For those of you that said no, I'd love to I understand why you don't think that will happen. Or the other way around. Yeah, it's interesting, this point of we can predict based on data. And that's a point of contention, isn't it? A lot of human-centered designers and researchers will tell you that data only goes so far. You can follow patterns and then that pattern changes. Humans are unpredictable and they're unreliable. But then marketeers will tell you in the social marketing realm that actually humans are pretty predictable and reliable and you can share that information over time. I love the volume we're getting here. I don't think I can keep up with even reading them. I think I'm going to have a research paper coming out of this alone. Just faster, more efficient, big data, danger of relying on assumptions. I think that's a very good point. I don't think it's feasible. I'm looking at the tech people as if they have the solution of slowing this down. I think that isn't going to happen. But humans are unpredictable, that's right. But then on the other hand, in large groups, they're very predictable. I had no idea that we were going to have such a large response. In fact, I asked to put this in this way because I was told that Estonians hardly speak at these conferences, they just listen. And now I've learned that if I give you a device, you'll actually write essays. So this has been wonderful for me. AI is able to assess the data more consistently and has a higher capability of possible outcomes not limited by brain capacity. Yes, that's interesting. It's a really good point. I also like the points that people are putting that are disagreeing, and I think they got lost. That was not intentional. I'm not trying to push people in a certain direction. If two robots can chat to see if two people match and they should go on a date or not, then this is just the beginning. I think there's someone here that's lonely. Are you okay? But yes, no, just the beginning. It's absolutely right. Okay, this is the beginning of what is a potential very exciting future. And if we go back to the main presentation, just in the interest of time, and I can see this is going to be a very engaged group, I'm going to skip forward a few slides and then come back. So I want to show you an example of where that's happened. So all the big reveals that are happening now. Here we go. Has anyone seen this test? This is a fascinating test. I suggest you read the study. I'm probably not going to explain it accurately as I should. But this was done, I believe, by Google and Stanford University. And they put all these little bots, they trained them up on different human characteristics, and they put them in this Sims-like reality. They had them walking around, talking to each other, making pancakes, sleeping. And then they gave one of them an invitation. And they tracked to see who they would give that invitation to. And predictably, the bot gave it to the other bots that it had made friends with. It didn't give it to the ones it didn't like. And it even took an invitation, I believe, away from one of the people it had given it to because they had an argument. That seems to me very close to a human reality. And I'm actually quite impressed. If this works, it's very early stages of testing. But if this works, can you imagine then how we could predict how people might behave in a school, a prison, how it might help in a healthcare system? If we can understand and reliably predict human behaviors and train bots, we can see how they're behaving. And who are the people that can help navigate this future? Us, in this room right now. We're the people that understand the frameworks and systems to make these kind of technologies have the most useful impact. Oh gosh, again, big reveals. Wow, incredible work, Helen. We'll go back to these questions. Today, final one. Today we design systems and processes to regulate and govern human societies. Tomorrow, will we design for computers to govern their societies? Who's designing for computers to govern their societies right now? Who is doing that work? Are any of you? I feel like we should be. We could be. We could be the people that are driving those systems, those policies, those frameworks, those methodologies to be able to govern these synthetic societies effectively. But then take it a stage further. In 10, 15 years, could computers do that work and we're all redundant? Maybe. And if computers are going to do that work, surely we're the ones that need to be designing how they go about that. Maybe train up these agentic AI models to be the designers of the future. Do we like that idea? Does it scare us? Oh, we go back to the thing. There we go. Can computers create systems to govern human societies? This has been something of big debate, with some people saying, actually, we shouldn't be doing that because these large language models are just built upon our own biases. So they're not really creating new things to govern societies, they're just learning from what we've seen before. But then I've had other people that have said, actually, computers could do a better job. We might be able to come up with new ways of governing our environments that we've not heard about before. And we should think about how they can help us in reimagining the way that we live our lives. Big provocation, big debate. You can see this has got no most more than any other answer. I am going to ask why and how, but that's just for my own entertainment, because I want to see how many answers we get within 30 seconds. But what I'll do is I'll consolidate this and give it all to Jana in case you want your thoughts reflected back to you. If we had an hour together, I'd go through them. There we go. Why and how. I think this is right. I think that's what you can see. Why and how? Yeah. It's inevitable. I love that. It might be inevitable. And in some markets, maybe it's moving that way. But in others, we're seeing huge amounts of regulation that might actually prevent this from happening. The brakes have really fundamentally been put on AI in certain countries at the moment. Yeah, I mean, we could swipe out gender inequality and racial bias. I am studying this as part of my PhD. So I'm working with the Royal College of Pathologists. And they come up with all the new procedures and protocols for new cancers. And what my provocation is when they come to meet together in a room, do they bring that bias into the room? Do we find that actually some of the people dominate the conversation? And what people thought before, they've shifted their opinion and then policies get made and situations created just by the power dynamics of 10 people in a room. So I'm going to test that with them later this year. I'm having all of these experts that are going to come together at the Royal College of Pathologists write a one-pager of their point of view on a specific topic. That's going to go into the generative AI system, and the generative AI is going to build a report. It's then going to contrast what they thought with second-party data in a closed-source environment to see if what they think is different to what the general consensus of opinion is on that topic. Then they're going to go into the room. They're going to have their 2-hour meeting. They're going to discuss and debate, and the generative AI is going to listen in. And it's going to then create me a set of report and guidelines based on the conversation they had in that room. It's going to show me who dominated the conversation, who didn't speak at all, who drove the conversation a specific direction, and ultimately the consensus and decision that was made by that group, which we can then contrast with the decision that people had come to before they moved into that room, and with the decision that's been made by broader experts in second-party data. That's really interesting to me to see if when we come together as groups of humans, we have bias in our decision-making, and if generative AI can help us reduce it. So you can see lots of other questions coming up here. We will not be able to control them. That's brilliant. I love that. Thank you, whoever's here. I didn't ask you to come, but you've given me a really good segue to the next part of my conversation. So I know we haven't gone through all of them. Again, there are many of you. There's not enough time. But there are 2 disciplines of thought right now about whether we can control AI and whether we should. So there's this field of human-centered AI. Anyone heard of this? Got a couple of nods. So human-centered AI is an emerging discipline intent on creating AI systems that amplify and augment rather than displace human abilities. It seeks to preserve human control in a way that ensures artificial intelligence meets our needs whilst operating transparently, delivering equitable outcomes and respecting privacy. It's a beautiful thought, isn't it? But it does go against whoever just put in the chat, we won't be able to control them. This suggests that this is something we can wrangle down. The other school of thought is that generative AI is going to be more like a child. It's learning, it's creating, it's growing, and we need to create the environment in which it can do that safely and responsibly, rather than preventing it from its own growth. What I think is we should use the frameworks we've built for humans, the best of our skill set, and try and redesign them for these bots as users. So you can see here, I've just taken this very simple diagram. Human-centered design, we often look at the desirability, feasibility, and viability of a product or service between the people, the technology, and the business. I believe that there is a space for, say, computer-centered design. So there's feasibility, what's the AI capable of? Viability, what does the AI need? And desirability, what does the AI want? And this is just me playing around with ideas. This hasn't been proven in any way or used anywhere. But I'm thinking to myself, if we could put the computer in the center and start designing things that it has value and can create, we might be able to start moving towards a future in which we have a pivotal role as designers in how these AI bots are used in developing, rather than leaving them out of control. And I pulled together the double diamond. We know it. I'm sure most of you have used it. Human-centered, human users, discover, define, develop, deliver. What's happening now, and a lot of this has been discussed today, and I think is really helpful, is we're finding AI tools that can improve this, right? I think we're all starting to look into them. We had everyone stand up. Sometimes it's working, sometimes it isn't. But I had a provocation of, should we be just using AI tools to help make this process better for our human users? Or should we actually be putting AI as users when we do this process? So I think there should be an inclusive double diamond. We're building the products or services for the human users, but also for the AI users. And if that's not feasible for whatever reason, I think at the bare minimum, we should put AI as a central part of our process. And why do I think we should be leading on this conversation? Because we are the empathy engineers. We think with an empathetic mindset. As designers, that's the natural way we work. And I think we have the potential to do this, right? Initially, it's about setting boundaries and providing structured learning environments. True growth, though, will come from a child or AI, from learning to navigate the world through understanding empathy and the ability to discern right from wrong, and the black and white of rules. Again, there's debate. Some people say an AI can't see the grey. It follows a predictable set of rules. But others think that it has the potential to learn like a human and to learn intuitively over time. This is a study. Has anyone seen this study? No? Again, I suggest you read it. I'm probably going to explain it inaccurately. Just want to caveat that for the wonderful people that have done the work. But they strapped a computer onto a child for 18 months to see if the AI would learn at the same speed as the child, and it did. It could recognize the same items in pretty well the same order as a child after 18 months, which is quite remarkable. And that's an organic style for the AI to learn, rather than just giving it a large language model of something we've built in ourselves in the past. And again, under debate whether this is actually going to be practical and work and grow, but if it did, we then might be looking at a system that's learning like a human, growing over time. So can we then use our frameworks as designers for that potential child of the future, which is a computer child? And this is what I've netted out at. I think potentially we can. And if we do, there was a time when we were building products with the business need first, right? You can see it there. How can we increase conversion rates on our site? How can we lower the number of calls to technical support? How can we grow our core audience? When human-centered design really took off, it was a shift, right, to the human problem. We have it there. How can I satisfy people so they're grateful for the product? What's the easiest way to help users figure out our product fit? And how can we keep our product from frustrating users? So I was just thinking, well, sure, that's the human problem we're seeking to solve for. But what about the computer's problem? So really what the computer's trying to do there is, how can I recognize the human behavior which shows diminished interest so I can proactively prompt them to stay longer, i.e. me seeing you all check out and giving you a question to answer. Number 2, how can I assess the right data to know the customer's problem and respond before a call to support happens? And the last one, how can I prioritize my focus so I can automatically find new customers who will be interested in your products? Right? In this sort of framework here, the computer has needs and wants, just as the human does, just as the business does. And I think, once again, the overall point I'm trying to make is these aren't the answers. You in this room can find the answers. I just think we need to get ahead of this as designers and start adapting our framework systems and methodologies for these potential future users. And that leads us to the final part of this, which is code without consequences. We know that we as humans have a nucleus of impact. There's something we want to achieve, but our sphere of control is incredibly limited. We know that. Your control over me is limited. We've had people even say in the chat there, we can't control AI. So what we have to do is think really pragmatically and smartly about those frameworks and systems we can put in place to make sure that nucleus of impact isn't negatively impacting something else, but is building positively on other things. And you can see here, I just did a brief drawing. We had a simplistic world where a human was using one specific technology. Then it moved forward. Technologies can talk to each other. There's going to hopefully, in the future, I say hopefully, some people don't want this, but be a situation where there's no human at all. In fact, the predictions right now is the next billion-dollar business will be just one person, right? So that would mean that all of these AIs are starting to operate with each other to deliver results that impact our society without us in the loop. This one here is really about miscommunication and loss of information. If there's miscommunication that happens between us as humans, there's got to be miscommunication that starts happening between AI. So how do we ensure that we create a situation in which that information is so clear that we're giving the AI, that it can pass it on to another system without things getting lost in the loop? And again, that's a job for us to do as designers. So finally, this symbiotic relationship, you've already seen us try to model how computers could help us think about how we live our lives. But I was also thinking there are structures that we've built for us, many different frameworks. Here's a socio-ecological framework. Could we use them and repurpose them for bots? So you can see here the individual, interpersonal, organizational, community, and public policy. For humans, that's family, it's values, it's culture, it's faith, it's media, it's food, it's neighbors, it's laws, it's government. For the AI, what might that be in theory? Well, they've got the creators, their users, their investors. They've got organizational pools, the code of conduct, rules, systems, data sources, values. As a community, other technologies, human collaborators, generative AI models. And finally, there's public policy, organizational policies, regulations, international and local laws. It isn't really too far to think, if we imagine an agentic AI user of our human society, how it would fit in its world and in its ecosystem and how that links to us. So I was pushing this thinking further, and this is one that I'm going to leave you with. Again, I want to reiterate, these aren't the answers. These are just fun provocations to help you start thinking about the answers. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I thought it was quite fun. I see this is the main time that everyone's taking out their phones and photographing it, which I'm quite excited about because it is a bit of fun for us to finish on. But Maslow's hierarchy of needs showed this physiological safety, love, belonging, esteem, and self-actualization for humans. That's what we're aiming for, right? If we're thinking that agentic AI, a generative AI, has the capacity to learn like a child, that it's going to create, that it's going to develop over time, that it's going to grow, that we're going to have to think of governmental systems and regulations and frameworks for it to exist in society, that is essentially saying it has the same level of agency as a human. And if we're saying that, then potentially it has the same opportunity to reach self-actualization. But obviously it can't reach self-actualization, it's a bot. So I've come up with the equivalent, which is those physiological needs: a data center, data access, data cleaning, data management, safety, no cyber threats, no government regulatory changes, no funding loss, no data center deconstruction. Already you can see, just with those two, it's quite hard for this generative AI bot to get to the top of the pyramid, right? A data center could close down, funding might be lost, a human might say this is useless and get rid of it. Creativity, ability to learn and produce results, to grow in intellectual capacity, to create meaningful outcomes. Wisdom, the ability to transfer knowledge and to recognize capacity and capability. And then finally, freedom. And I was imagining, I don't know the answer, but I was imagining as a bot what freedom might look like. And I think it's the ability to co-create with other bots without human intervention. It's agency to make decisions and to operate within a governed construct. And operate within a given construct is the key phrase here. We need to be the ones that make those constructs. We're the best place to do it as designers. We've done human-centered design. I think we can do computer-centered design. And I give you all the sort of stimulus to go away and think about how you might apply what you're doing day to day for the agentic bots of our future. And with that, I'm going to end to say we've moved from human-centered to user-centered. And I believe that our future is not only human-centered, but it should also be computer-centered. Thank you so much for your time.